Alexander Stubb is this sort of Nordic wonder man that can do everything. He's done all political roles. He's a very accomplished Ironman. He also has this golfer past, and that, of course, has kind of made him a little bit a Trump whisperer.
Hello, this is Tamara Cohen from the Sky News Daily. Before we get into this episode, please make sure that you have subscribed to the Sky News channel so you get all the latest from us. And if you tap in the top right-hand corner, you can make sure you get the Sky News Daily podcast in your feed. Today we're talking about a golfer turned politician who dabbles in a bit of Ironman, and that is the Finnish President Alexander Stubb, who seems to be becoming Donald Trump's go-to ally.
Well, he's a very good golfer, okay? In fact, he was on his college golf team. He went to a good college in the South, as you know, a very good college, and he was a good golfer. We had a good time. You're a young, powerful man. Before I finish up, I want you to say a couple of words. Go ahead.
I'll take the notion of youth back to my wife and try to convince her.
So why has their friendship blossomed, and is it all part of a wider power play by President Trump? To find out, I spoke to a former diplomat at the Danish embassy in Washington about whether Stubb has any real influence on the president. But first, I spoke to Linnainmäki, a former political advisor in Finland, about how Stubb rose to the top of politics and what we can learn from his journey.
Finland is a small country. We have a saying here that it's not a country, it's a country club. But Stubb, when you meet him in person, he's a professional politician. He's a very optimistic and charismatic person. He's very eager to connect with people. It's easy to approach him on the street or ask him for a selfie. He's very well known for that in Finland. He's an athletic guy. He's been into many different sports during his long career. He used to be a pro golfer, something that he now relates to Trump with. He's an Ironman. He's been into triathlons for a long time, even when he was serving in very responsible roles as Minister of Foreign Affairs and as Prime Minister. And I think he really puts the same amount of effort and dedication into politics that he puts into sports.
Tell us about his political career, because he kind of climbed the ladder in politics, but then left and came back.
Well, it's actually quite a story. He's a transatlanticist and he's a Europeanist. He studied European politics. He did his BA at Furman University, actually in the US, but then went on to do his MA in the College of Europe, where he met his wife, who is British, by the way, a dual citizen and the First Lady of Finland these days. Basically, he became one of the top ministers in Finland before ever becoming a member of parliament. But he had always served in the European Parliament at the time. And he came in as this kind of young lion, very fresh-faced, energetic, new type of politician who was talking about European Union and all these exciting European ideas.
So he got into politics, he was kind of catapulted into politics, and he then became Prime Minister, but he didn't actually stay Prime Minister for that long.
Yes, sadly for his party at the time, there were some domestic issues which were ended up with his party losing popularity, and they were not doing that well. They lost an election. He ended up becoming the Minister of Finance and left Finnish politics entirely in 2016.
So he'd been kind of ousted as Prime Minister. He decided to take time out. He went to the European Investment Bank, and it looked like he wasn't coming back to politics. But then suddenly he did make this comeback. Was it a surprise?
It's a huge comeback story, actually. He was away from Finnish domestic politics for 7 years. At one point, he pledged that he would never return to Finnish politics because the cost to his family and cost to himself and his well-being would be too high. He rarely spoke to Finnish media during those 7 years. Then when we had a presidential election in 2023, he suddenly announced that he's coming back to run for president. He feels that he has something to give to the country. And actually, when he came back, he had a completely new, almost like a profile in Finnish politics. When he left, he was a fresh-faced young lion, very energetic, taking risks, asking Finnish diplomats to come to or join X and start tweeting and whatnot, which at the time believe it or not, was a very modern thing to do. And when he came back to Finnish politics to run for president, he came back as a more restrained character. He spoke slower. He seemed to be more pensive and more this statement-like character.
Now, a lot had, of course, changed in Finland at that time. The Ukraine war was underway. You'd joined NATO after many years of not wanting to join NATO. And do you think his internationalist outlook made him the man for the moment?
That was definitely part of the story and a main plank of his campaign. He was selling himself as a staunch pro-transatlanticist. He's always been pro-NATO, the pro-NATO camp in Finland, even when it was not that popular. So now he was able to sell himself as this right man for the new NATO era and Finnish foreign and security policy at a time when many Finns were very worried about Russia's aggressive war in Ukraine. And he's always felt a very keen affinity towards European Union and towards the US. And I think it's very much related to his experiences, both studying in the European Union and in the US. Trump, for whatever reason, likes Finland, which is good for us in this security environment that we're living in. He thinks that we take care of our forests. He often mentions this on US TV when, for example, there are news about wildfires in California or whatnot. He's been in Helsinki. He met with Putin in Helsinki in 2018, hosted by our then President Niinistö. So he knows about our strong defense forces, our conscription army and whatnot. So I think Trump feels that we take care of our security and we take our defense very seriously. So he doesn't feel like Finland has ever been a free rider in its relationship with Europe. And also Finnish diplomats actually kept in touch with Trump even before he came back to power. It was actually Lindsey Graham who suggested that Trump and Stubb should get together to play a round of golf. What ended up happening is that they played a long round of golf one weekend in Florida. Maybe it was 7 hours or so. They spoke about the war in Ukraine. They spoke about our experiences with Russia. Stubb has said afterwards that he told Trump that Russia cannot be trusted, shared some of our experiences. And then they also had a very long lunch after that. So plenty of time to connect both on a professional level on these key points that Finland wanted to get across, but also on more personal topics like their love for the sport.
Since then, they've talked a lot, haven't they? How has their relationship developed since that first meeting?
Traditionally, Finnish presidents have sought to build a bridge between Russia and the Soviet Union and their leaders, and we have acted as the host nations for this meeting between presidents and leaders. And now actually the one end of the bridge has gone from or moved from Moscow to Kiev. So he's trying to also bridge the gap between Trump and Zelensky, among with other European leaders. But their personal relationship, I think it's very active. It's more active than we hear about in media or that what they share publicly. They talk or text weekly, sometimes, if not more often, daily. And I don't think Stubb would have been at the White House on Monday in that meeting between Zelensky and the European leaders and Trump if there wouldn't be a strong and very active bilateral relationship there.
Now, he, of course, has been at the top table slightly unexpectedly. Of course, he was in Washington on Monday. I mean, tell us how unusual it is for a president of a country the size of Finland to be there, to be in the room like that.
It's very unusual. We're a small country of 5.6 million people. We are maybe a medium-sized country within NATO due to the size of our army and the strength of our defense forces, but still a country of limited influence. And we're not used to being at the center of international diplomacy at this level, at the very, very, very core of it. The role that we have usually played in international politics is a more passive role, being the host for meetings of leaders or gatherings of other countries. And now the role is more active, acting as a bridge and maybe a message amplifier as well. Stubb has tried to leverage his experience from peace mediation. He was the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the chair of the OSCE when the Georgia War, 5-day Georgia War happened in 2008. So he was part of those discussions and visited Georgia at the time. And later on, he was the chair of CMI, the Crisis Management Initiative. It's one of the premier international peace mediating organizations in the world. So he has experience from both. And he has tried to leverage those experiences and positions to tell Trump and tell other audiences as well that these processes usually take time. They can go forward, they can go backward. They're very complex and you need to think about multiple different components. But it's a very painstaking, very slow a process that takes a lot of creativity and patience from the persons who are trying to do that.
Of course, Donald Trump sees himself as a bit of a peacemaker in conflict, some of which with more success than others. Is there any reason to think they've bonded over that's something they've talked about?
Definitely, peace as a topic is close to both of their hearts. Obviously, Trump talks a lot, not only about winning the Nobel Peace Prize or settling all these different conflicts around the world, but even during the campaign, his re-election campaign last year, he talked about peace quite often.
So it could be that this friendship between them could actually turn into a force for peace.
Well, we can only hope, and definitely Stubb and the European leaders are trying to push Trump to increase pressure on Putin and Russia to end the war in Ukraine. And I think the game that we are playing here is that if the peace process collapses for whatever reason, the blame will be put on Russia, and that would end up in more pressure for Russia and eventually into an actual peace process and a lasting peace for Ukraine.
That was Linnainmäki with the picture from Finland. I also spoke to Jonas Parello-Plesner, a former diplomat in the Danish embassy in Washington during Donald Trump's first term, to understand what influence Stubb may be having on his golfing buddy.
Alexander Stubb is this sort of Nordic wonder man that can do everything. He's done all political roles, and he's a really accomplished sports guy at the same time. So I mostly actually knew about his triathlon, his Ironman. So he's a very accomplished Ironman and have done amazing times on some of the Ironman routes. I used to track him on Strava. I think now that he's in his presidential position, he's kind of closed his Strava, so not everybody can see where he's doing his run and where he's doing his different things. But I would see him when he was used to based in Italy and be cycling around very actively around the Italian Tuscan mountains. And but we've not done one together. But then he also has this golfer past, and that of course has kind of made him a little bit a Trump whisperer, or at least a Trump confidant.
As you say, Stubb is now seen as this favourite of Trump, internationally at least. Is that how he sees it? Does he make a big deal of their friendship?
I don't think we should overplay it as well either. And I think Stubb is also really very careful about this when he does interviews. He's very careful about not sort of making him seem kind of more than he is. But we've also seen over the years, both inside the White House and with other foreign leaders, that then Trump likes somebody and then suddenly he doesn't like them. Like with Macron, there's been the French president, these falling in and out. Oh, I listen to Macron, and other times this guy is kind of almost out to cheat me. And that same goes for Trump's personnel inside the White House, where people you would think are his really close confidants, then suddenly they lose out and they're out. I could mention somebody like Bannon. So I think that's why they're also really careful how to sort of manage a mercurial Trump, that they don't get on the wrong side of him. And Stubb so far has really managed that.
Stubb has been very clear that he's told Trump not to trust Putin. That's his experience from a country that has an 800-mile border with Russia. Do we know whether Trump listens? Does it make a difference?
Right now, it looks, from a European point of view, and from a Ukrainian positive, in the sense that when Trump talked after this meeting with Zelensky, with the European leaders, including Stubb, he talked again to Putin. It was clearly kind of to convey some messages that they had agreed to, and really to put kind of the pressure on Russia, and also, suddenly it was on the table, the question of American security guarantees for Ukraine, which is something we hadn't really heard Trump speak too much of before. That looks sort of fairly positive, and I think Stubb was a good part of that European diplomatic bodyguards that came with Zelensky and tried to sort of keep this on track, keep this on message. So far, so good.
I thought it was fascinating, actually, earlier this month when European leaders put together this joint statement, basically warning Trump not to give away parts of Ukraine. And it was very punchy. And afterwards, it was not just that Stubb was in the room with the G7 countries, but that he was the one who called Trump afterwards to tell him what they'd decided.
Yeah, that shows that they know, and it also shows, I think, very positively that Europe plays sort of in the same court. That leaders right now can put aside their egos and say, who has the most access right now to Trump, and if it's Stubb, let's use that, because we all have in the interest that Ukraine is not presented with a really bad deal, something that would entice Putin to be much more aggressive in the rest of Europe. So in that sense, it's really high stakes for us. So you could say. It matters. So whoever we have that has the right chemistry at the moment with Trump, and right now it's Alexander Stubb, then that's great that he's then being used. And I would say on the British side, I kind of also admire that you don't take it as like, oh, we have to use a sort of smaller nation as our envoy and say, no, I mean, this is just a reality at the moment. Trump actually does listen to him. So let's use this as long as this keeps working out.
Denmark, of course, is another small country. How do small countries see Stubb's influence with Trump? Are they a bit jealous?
A little bit of jealousy, but I think overall the same as I said about the UK, that like if it works through Stubb, let's use it. It's in all of Europe's interest. But I did sort of just go through both Danish and Swedish press, and I did find at least one article in each. One was asking, of course, why is Mette Frederiksen the Danish prime minister, because she's also the EU president at the moment. So looked at protocol and everything. It could have been more likely to be her, but it's of course that personal relationship again here that we've talked about that makes the difference. And the same in Sweden with Ulf Kristersson, their prime minister. But I again think overall the situation is so serious, and with the war going on in Ukraine, so it's not really about egos, but about who can best help kind of convince the American president to stay on Ukraine's side and not be sort of lured by anything Putin says that tries to sort of present his sort of very distorted view of this war in Ukraine.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Sky News Daily podcast. To hear more from the team, do follow us wherever you get your podcasts and here on YouTube. Goodbye.